Well, hey guys, hope you're having a great weekend and welcome to a quick impromptu episode here on the main track. I've been working on a studio here in the train room and things have been coming along with that, but as you know, with any construction project, things get kind of behind sometimes, so I decided we needed to get this thing on the road finally, and so I figured I'd whip out an episode for you and just give you a quick update on how things are coming along here on my HO scale Sedalia Subdivision layout. And as you can see right here, I got some scenery down, I got some trains running, and made some progress in recent weeks. All right, well, the last update I brought you guys about 3 months ago, most of the area that I have here on my layout looked pretty much like this. Barren tabletop here, had some track down, had some cork road bed. I was able to run some trains back and forth, so I was able to at least get that going. But I do have some scenery going on. And for those of you who may have tuned into some of our previous episodes, this spot right here is going to be where my Kansas City Power and Light power station is going to be for Montrose, Missouri. This is going to be a destination for coal trains. It's going to be a pretty massive structure. Going to be taking up this entire wall right here. I've even got my backdrop going way up there, so I got enough space for my smokestacks and such. I'll have some yard tracks here to be able to unload unit coal trains. I have a few coal cars right there just sitting on the track with one of my Burlington Northern units. That's one of those GP38s from Rapido that I bought a few weeks ago and I showed you in one of those review episodes. Really loving these GP38s. This BN one here is on the coal train because a lot of the BN units came in on these coal trains on the Katy on this St. Louis line that I'm modeling right here. I've got the ballasting down, the track weathered for my passing siding. Ladue, Missouri is what I'm modeling on this section of the layout that I've been able to get some work done on. And this was a spot where trains could pass one another or they could get off the main line to come down this branch line. Kind of repeating myself here, but in the prototype, the power plant was served by about a 2 or 3 mile branch line off the main line. And so for the sake of space, I'm going to have to put the power plant on the main line and the opposite side of the tracks. With modeling, sometimes you got to make compromises. I don't have all the space in the world, nor do most of us, but that's what I'm having to do to get all that in for the operational aspects there. All right, coming down here a little bit, I have a country road all set up and scenic right there. Now, I've had some people ask me in some of my Facebook posts of my updates how I've done this. How I make my dirt roads, my gravel roads, is I lay down Woodland Scenics ballast. I use the finest material that they have, same size of material that I use for my ballast, but I use the light gray. So I just put that down, just like you're doing the ballasting of the track, glue it all down. The thing about it is, when it dries, it's very rough and coarse. It looks just like your track does. And on the track with the ballast, it's okay if it looks rough, but on gravel roads, you've got a lot smaller material of the rock. And so it looks a little unprototypical. So what I found a really good way to replicate the gravel road is once everything is dry, take a really fine piece of sandpaper and sand it down. I promise it's going to stay there. It's not going to go everywhere. It's not going to take that up. Once you do that, I'm rubbing my hand across here, and it's actually perfectly smooth. But to your eye, it looks like you can see the actual granules of the gravel right there. This is one of my GP38s right back there, and that's going to be one of those ones I'm going to patch up for the MKT. The Katy had a lot of these former Conrail units, and so I already have the decals ready to go for that. Back here, right now I have this plain blue backdrop. I'm going to have a photo backdrop on this layout. Most of my layouts that I've had over the years, I've just had plain blue, but I'm going to be experimenting with some photos. I had planned on going up to the prototype town, Ladue, Missouri, in recent weeks to be able to get some photographs of the actual scene from some of the trees back there. However, the leaves started to change before I could get up there. I modeled the summer of 1987, so I need the trees to look like it's summer. But with the fall time, I didn't get up there in time, so I'm going to have to wait till the spring here in a few months to be able to get up there and get those photographs to be able to make those photo backdrops. I suppose I could use pictures of trees from any location, but I'm wanting to kind of use the ones from the actual scene just to kind of keep it an actual image from the real. Got some line poles. I really like utility poles and line poles. For those of you who had seen my previous incarnation of the layout, going to have plenty of those on here. And I've got some of those planted already on that. So the backdrop, got it painted. It's called Eerie Skies. I believe it's by Dutch Boys. So I thought it was kind of interesting. Erie as in E-R-I-E, just like the Erie Railroad. So that's going to be easy for me to remember the name of that paint. And it actually comes out looking pretty good. A very light blue. But once again, I'll have the blue up here. The photo backdrops for the trees will be right around there. And I think it'll really bring the scenes to life. All right, coming into Ladue right here, we have our 2 tracks, the main line, the passing siding, and we have a spur that goes off to this feed mill right here. And this is something that I had given you updates on the Facebook page. And I'll talk more about that here in a second. But this was the siding right here to be able to unload the hoppers on that. And this was actually a rail-served customer all the way up through the 1980s. This right here is the representation of State Highway T. And you see I've got some signs in place already. These are some of those We Honest signals that I have reviewed in the past. Don't have those hooked up just yet. I do have them wired, but because I have 2 tracks, I'm having to figure out how to synchronize the 2 lines together to be able to activate those signals. I believe the sensor is back there. I have those buried in the track right there. So that's ready to go. One of these evenings I'll have the time to get underneath and get some of that wiring done. But this is going to be interesting for a lot of people to see. You might be wondering why in the world I have the signals protecting the 2 lines right here and why the siding is outside of these signals right there. This is the way the prototype was. I don't know that I've ever seen an arrangement like this. Usually any kind of sidings and main lines and everything are all between the signals, but in Ladue, you had this siding going to the grain elevator that was outside of the signal protection. And so whenever the crews came to switch the elevator, they would back in and they would have to get out and flag that crossing right there. When the trains were on the main line or the passing siding, that would activate the signals, but this siding right here was not tied to those signals. And in fact, there wasn't even a crossbuck. It was just simply completely unsigned and unsignaled. I'm not sure that would fly nowadays, but that's how they did things back then. I've got some of these signs in place right there. At least the motorists, I guess, had the advance warning sign. Definitely had to watch out. Obviously, backing down the siding, trains are going very, very slow. And they would stop here at the crossing before going across there. And they would flag that, make sure the traffic had stopped. As I mentioned, this here is the Master Mix grain elevator. And I kind of mentioned this in some of my previous episodes, getting that put together. It is pretty much complete at this point. It's not a 100% representation, but it's very, very close. This is kind of a hack job on a Walthers kit. You can probably look at that and kind of tell its heritage, if you will, but I was able to make a lot of cuts to get the exact shape and size that I needed for that grain elevator right there. So I think it turned out pretty well. I used a house from Rick's Products to make the grain elevator office right there. Bins right here, also from Rick's Products. And I actually like these a lot. I've used Walthers grain bins, which are much larger kits than these. These represent much smaller grain bins. I tell you what, these went together a lot easier than the Walthers kits do. The Walthers, they have the larger bins. You obviously need those, but they're kind of difficult to get to fit with the bands. And I've had some fits with those in the past, putting them together. But these Rick's Products bins went together very quickly, very nicely. And as you can see, the bands for the corrugated metal right there went together very easily. There were some chutes coming down from the grain elevator into the bins right there, so I'll be working on those, getting those in place. I've already got some of the piping, and we'll be adding those sometime soon. So I do have my customer here. I'm able to do some operations here and serve the grain elevator. Got the little area right there where trucks can unload their grains and such. Now this is where I took some of my modeler's liberty here. I do know that the siding served the grain elevator directly right behind there. The track went way back. I can't really find any photographs other than of the grain elevator in the background. I don't even have any real photographs that show the elevator up close, so I had to go by memory from what I recall seeing back in the 1980s, early 1990s before they tore this down, and then just using some of the videos and photos of the Katy with that elevator in the background right there. So this I'm just in a sense making up right here, this area of the lot. And I have this auger right here where grain trucks can come in, dump their grain, and load up those hopper cars right there. So don't know if the prototype had that, but this just gives me sort of another little aspect from my operations right there. Coming down here, got a little country road crossing. This is sort of where my scenery does peter out at this point, but I do have that gravel road down there. I have it sanded off so far, and going to be putting some grass right there. All of this is going to have static grass sometime very soon. I just have the regular foam ground cover on there right now just to get something on there. And it does a fine job right now, but it doesn't really portray the types of grass that would have been here along the prototype. So I'm looking forward to getting some of that. On the backdrop here, when I have the photo backdrop, I'm going to have some static grass along the back right there, and also some vegetation, some trees, trying to blend in with that photograph so it's not just completely flat. There'll be sort of a transition between some of the actual three-dimensional scenery, if you will, blending into that photo backdrop. Give any idea right there, looking down the main line. As you see, I do have the fascia put together. I've got that on there. I have it painted a dark green color. I just put a recent fresh coat on there. When you're doing work on here, things get kind of dusty, so I had to go back and put a fresh coat. So there may be some areas where it's still drying right there. All right, coming down here, as I mentioned, the scenery kind of peters out at this point, but I will have that crossing right there. Now, I kind of talked about this area. This is my drop-down gate. Back here, I have a double door that leads to my backyard, and I needed to keep access for these doors for a couple of reasons. First of all, I need to get in and out of my train room, which I have a split-level house, so my backyard is back there. We need to be able to get in and out. And this will also be the primary way to get in and out of the layout room when we have visitors over for, just to take a look at the layout or for operations or whatnot. So I needed some way to preserve access in and out of there very quickly, that I could also, get this gate, this bridge, in and out very quickly. My basement does not have the tallest ceilings, and so I have about 3.5 feet on the door right there. If I made a gate that was 3.5 feet that lifted up, I wouldn't have enough room. It would actually hit the ceiling. I thought about doing something that I could pull out and just store to the side, and then I thought of some other options. But what I went with was this drop down bridge right here. See, I got a handle right there. I do have some latches. On the upcoming episode, I'll kind of talk a little bit more about how I built this. But I've got a couple of little latches underneath here that's holding it in place. You can see the lines where the bridge actually is. And so once I release those latches, hold on to the handle, and it just drops right down, and I have it to where it just kind of dangles right there, and it's just out of the way, and then I can get in and out of the door. So you may be wondering about the backdrop. These are actually magnetic. This portion I will leave in place most of the time. It's going to be a very rare occasion that I need to have both of these doors open, maybe if I'm moving furniture in and out or some kind of appliances. But for the most part, I'm only going to need access through one door right there. So that's going to pretty much stay in place, but if it ever needs to come out, we can take the backdrop down. It just comes off with magnets, and I can take that section down. It's a little more permanent, bolted into the rest of the layout, so that'll take a little more work to get undone, but it's still pretty easy if I need to do that. This is going to be the one that comes down and out pretty quickly. So drop that down right there. I can take that off. It literally just pulls right off. I've got a couple of braces, brackets back there with those magnets on it. But if I'm just down here, want some sunlight in the room, I'll be able to just leave that off if I want. But I can take off both of these backdrop sections or just the one right there. And just put them underneath the layout or whatever I need. And then when I want to put things back up, they literally just pop right back in there. I recently painted those literally within the last 30 minutes, so that paint is wet. That's why I'm not going to go up there and I take that off right now. But I promise you in an upcoming episode, I will give you the ins and outs of my little drop down gate right there. We'll kind of come down here. The siding will end right here. I've got my Missouri Pacific caboose sitting on the siding right there. But this will be the other end of Ladue siding. I have measured it out and I think I can fit about a 25 car train in there. Looking here at the backdrop, you see I got the nails right there where I constructed this. There's a framework back there. I will be putting some kind of transition joint right there that's going to hide that. That way when that pops into place, you're not going to see that crack right there. It's going to have some kind of thickness to it. It's not going to be able to be completely flat, but putting some kind of a small thin strip right there is going to help to hide that crack, and also the nails that just had to be in there for the obvious purposes of the construction right there. All right, so that is a look here at what I have done of Ladue, Missouri so far here on my Missouri, Kansas, Texas Sedalia Subdivision layout. In the coming days, I'll be finishing up the landscaping on this end of this portion of the layout, and then transitioning onto the this bridge area in this section of the layout. I'm gonna have to do some really precise cutting. Obviously, I don't have the track cut yet on the sides of that. It's just simply laid across the joints, and I'll have to make sure that that's perfect. So whenever the drop down drops down, the track will align perfectly when we put it back together, when we put the bridge back up. All right, so these back here, these have appeared in lots of episodes. These are a couple of my KT units. Both of these are by Athearn Genesis, GP38-2 number 313 and GP39-2 363. So the GP39-2s are my favorite KT units. These GP38-2s are also very nice. I'll obviously have stripes right here. I'm trying to figure out what to do in the way of that. I'll show you in one of the upcoming episodes how I made this street. This is a new technique that I have figured out. Underneath here are some Rick's Products road sections which are used for bridges. I had some of these on my original layout, and they have lines scribed in them representing concrete jointed roadways, and those are great for that. But I was looking for something to be the same width. Instead of cutting out styrene, I simply used some of those. I was able to fill in those concrete joints with some plaster, and so that made them perfectly smooth. And then I was able to use a special kind of textured paint to get this asphalt look right there. And it's kind of hard to see here on camera, but there is a really nice rough texture to that. I think I got a close enough color to it. If I went back and did it, I may use a darker color, little bit darker gray, but I think it looks just fine for now. Perhaps when I weather it up, that'll make it a little bit darker and it will look better. So as I mentioned, this is what we got done so far, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I know this isn't the prettiest video. It was just more of an impromptu update here, just as I've been trying to work on that studio area, get that done. But lots of exciting projects in the works, including some book projects. Some of you guys have been asking about that. I have a reprint of Show Me KT coming out sometime very soon in the coming months, and then also some additional KT books. So in my next episode, I'll be talking about that. If you want more details, go to themaintrack.com. That's my website, and you can find some details about our books and videos on there and some of those upcoming projects. But I look forward to telling you more about those and some of my upcoming shows. I hope you'll stay tuned, and we thank you for joining us for this update today. Have a great week, guys, and we'll see you next time right here on The Main Track.